Welcome back to Evolving Waves, where we ride the tides of adversity to reach the shores of success. Today, we are proud to have Megan Brown back with us, the intrapreneur. We did not get into that quite as much in the first part. That's going to be saved for the latter two parts. And I think, Megan, we got pretty deep and heavy in the first part with your rough childhood, I think it's fair to say. Um, but as we're hinting at with riding the tides of adversity to reach those shores of success, you've grown quite a bit since those days, and there's quite a lot of success to share. And we'll get into all that in this episode, as well as the finale, the part three of the trilogy that's coming up in a couple weeks. But before we get into the next part of Megan's story, we want to quickly shout out our sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Stingray Branding, an award-winning national lead generation focused marketing agency that helps businesses generate ROI from their marketing efforts, including, but not limited to, web design, social media marketing, Google search, email, automations, and more. Learn more about Stingray Branding and all the awards they've won at stingraybranding.com. And with that said, we are so happy, as always, to welcome Megan Brown back into our studio to tell us part two of her story. Megan, thank you again for your time and being willing to share this with us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, as I put the award back. And we jump right into the story. So we kind of ended the first episode in a not necessarily a cliffhanger, but we made it known that there was a lot of success to come out of the struggles you dealt with as a child. We talked about how you wound up having your tubes tied and still got pregnant anyway. The timing didn't quite align there, but you were a single parent, and I think that's just the best place to start. And we talked about your parenting style at the end of the last episode, but talk me through the challenges and struggles you faced as a single mom.
Sure. So, and there's tons of them. So, as the only parent my son has here, my ex-husband lives in Arizona. So, he does see him. He does talk to him. He's actually leaving tomorrow for the summer, to go spend the summer with his dad. But as the only parent he has here, that means I am breakfast, lunch, dinner, forgot my laptop, need to go to school, sick days, all of it. So, it's very rewarding to know that my child knows he can rely on me and I show up. That's one of the things I'm really good at is just showing up. But I'm everything. That means there's not a lot left for you at the end of the day. um, he doesn't struggle at all. I am very conscious because of how I grew up of making sure that my child has never been forgotten, doesn't get picked up late, doesn't ever forget his lunch, has everything that he needs, and it's all taken care of, and almost to his detriment. So we like had to intertwine some independence in the last couple of years, but like because of how I grew up and not having my needs met, that is a big part of my parenting style and something that I've had to really like pivot from. And that is the hardest thing in the world to do when you think you're doing what's best and you're like, "Oh, this is not what's best." And now we have to restructure and figure it out together and that's fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the struggles of being a single parent is the first word of that, single. You don't have the help of a second parent. And it seemed like from what we were talking off air, and it seemed like from what you were saying that before you got pregnant, it seemed like he'd be a good father. And then you
Yeah.
learned a little bit more about him.
Yes. So my ex-husband and we do have a great co-parenting relationship. We don't, have struggles, but my ex-husband, when we got together, was like the guy that if he wanted a dog one time, and I was like, we don't have a fence, and he spent an entire weekend just built a fence in the yard, and we went and got a dog, and then he would coach soccer for kids that didn't belong to him. He had NASA Saturdays that he would do at the school, and he would teach kids all this stuff, and at the time was 4 and he was amazing with her. When we got pregnant, he kind of shut down on me, on all of us, I guess. Ryan has similar anxiety to what my child has. So they both have debilitating anxiety issues. And while I sometimes was very understanding, there were times that I was like, you're having all the anxiety and I don't know what I'm doing. And like, I also could have anxiety, but I don't have time for that because I just have to do stuff. And so for me, like when we separated, Ryan did not want to separate. He did not want the divorce. But he understood and he was like, I haven't really been part of the household. I haven't really done what I'm supposed to do. I haven't been the greatest husband. I get it. I knew if I left him when Rylan was little, that he probably would have just disappeared. And so I didn't leave him. I kept thinking my stepdad was so bad. And I was like, I don't want anybody else coming around. And who's going to love him like his dad does? And I battled this for, I mean, we were married for 10 years until the divorce, but 8 years total. And I thought, I don't want to live miserably because the guy that sits on the couch and watches TV will love my child more than somebody else, because that may not be accurate if that's all he's doing. If that's where we're at, like, I can't do everything. I'm the mom that comes home and yells every day. I'm the mom that is overwhelmed and doesn't have help and can't hire help because he doesn't like people in the house. Like, it was a battle for nonstop. And so I basically like, we gotta move on. And a year after we separated, Ryan moved to Arizona, which, and he's still very involved. He has calls with Rylan. He's going out for the summer. But I essentially have had so many conversations with him where he was like, I don't know why you would say that. I would never do that. I would never have left. I would have always been. And I'm like, you say that to me while you're doing it right now. Like, you left 2 years ago and you moved across the country for a job you didn't have to take. You did it and you're still doing it. Like, you don't understand what it looks like to be here and be the parent and be the everything, because you get to live your life like you didn't have a kid until it's convenient. And like, while I love Ryan for being the father of my child, it's very difficult to parent so differently and to have this like his thought process is very different than mine. I say, like, you left your child across the country, and he's like, that's not what happened, but it is. And so, like, how do you talk and co-parent with people who don't necessarily see the damage they're doing along the way, and they don't understand why you would say you abandon your kid? And I'm like, look up the definition of abandonment. Maybe we start there. But I also like give him a lot of grace. I probably too much. I cater to my ex-husband more than most. I make sure he gets every visit he wants. I facilitate those visits. I make sure that he gets all the phone calls he wants. I provide the game systems and whatever else I need to provide to make sure they have things to do on calls. And he does not, he's never been told no. If you want access to our child, you have it. Now it's up to you. So that's kind of how we do things.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you just said, it seems like you are more gracious in terms of sharing your child with your co-parent than a lot of other people would be in that situation. Why?
Um, my child is not a pawn. I do not want him seeing us argue or fight or think that he is property. I want him vocalizing to me where he wants to be and what he wants to do. If he wants to see or talk to his dad, he has open access at all times. I do not want him growing up with the stipulation of, I bought that, you can't take that to your dad's, or vice versa. I don't want him feeling like his things are not his, or he is just in a game. And that's because of my mom and the way she raised us. That was what we felt all the time. If she bought something, it couldn't go to daddy's house. Or my daddy was not like that. But like, it was very strict rules based on, well, I did it, so it's mine, or whatever. And so I don't want him doing that. I don't want him thinking that he's just part of our life. He is our life, and he needs to know that this is how it should work. I have to be nice, I have to be the adult, I have to be cordial, but like, I also understand the importance of making sure that he's number one.
So, a quick follow-up to that. Are either of you currently dating someone else that he has another mother or father figure on top of his bio? Okay. So,
Yes. So, so Ryan has been dating the same woman for 2 years now. Her name's Savannah. I actually just met her for the first time. We went on a cruise together. So all of us do that. That's a big part of our co-parenting. I facilitate all of that. So, my had the same spring break as Rylan this year, and I had not met Savannah at this point. And I called and said, we want to go on a cruise. Do you and Savannah want to go? And so I took my boyfriend. He brought Savannah. We all commingled. We had dinner together. That is important to me. It has not been the case the whole time. It is very hard to do. Not everybody is on board in the beginning. It's very odd. It's a dynamic that not everybody wants to get behind. But we absolutely loved her, and it was my family, my dad, my sister, my niece, me, boyfriend, and then Ryan and his new girlfriend, or well, 2-year girlfriend. And so like it was really nice. It's good to be able to do that. Rylan had a great time, and we like my vision is that we show up as a team. So like if he had a sporting event, I don't want us to have to sit on opposite sides of the field. I don't want to have to text your girlfriend about our child because she doesn't want me texting you, because it's like that's not how this works. But I also don't want any adult that lives in the house with my child who does have some challenges to feel lost, or like the decisions that we make are not something she can be part of or he can be part of. Like you're affected by this. And so if there's an adult in a household that will be affected by the choices you make for your kids, they should be involved in them. Mine and Brian's like decisions will outweigh for the most part, but for them, like I feel like it should be an open conversation with any adult that's affected by the child. So that's the way I view things. It's not for everybody. It's not possible in every situation, but that's how we do it.
It's an admirable approach for sure. And it would be an admirable approach even if everything was all hunky dory, I guess. But I mean, even with your son, you mentioned not only is he not a pawn in this game, but there are struggles that you have to go through with him as well, including severe anxiety. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So we've known my ex-husband's anxiety presented when he was in kindergarten. Rylan's came at the same exact time. So Rylan went to kindergarten. He went for like 2 weeks. He was in 4K, no problems. All of a sudden, 2 weeks into kindergarten, he started hyperventilating and having breakdowns. He is very open. I'm not outing him by any means. He tells people that he is on medication every day for anxiety and allergies. When his alarm goes off, he's quick to go take his medications. Um, Without them, he struggles like like to the point that he can't make it through the day of school. And I would love to help him with that. We have him in therapy. We have done everything else that we could do. I actually felt really guilty because I was raised that you don't take medications on my dad's side. Like, and I, because of my pill issues, like did not want to put him on medication. And I took him to the doctor. It was right after Ryan left, so he was almost 9. And I said, we filled out these questionnaires, and his score was so high. They said anything over a 12, we would usually put somebody on medication. And Rylan was 50 plus. And I said, I would have answered those questions the same way when we were married. We had just accommodated so much that he didn't have the outward outburst of anxiety because we like didn't make him leave the house to go to the store. We like he was going to school and he was fine, but we weren't making him do anything like life related. And we thought that we were like on top of it. We were not. So we put him on the medication. It changed our lives. I highly recommend it. A little bit controversial. Also use CBD, but without that, like I could not walk our dog. Um, I would go outside to walk the dog, and Rylan would call me from his iPad and be like, "If I can't see you, someone has clearly gotten you." And he'd be crying over 5 minutes, and I'd like, okay, like, what do you do to help your child feel like that's not the case? I'm like, dude, I got 34 years at this point of like coming home safe. I think I'm doing great. My track record is good. You don't have to worry. And he's like, that doesn't matter in your brain with anxiety. So it didn't matter that I had 34 years of track record. It mattered that if I wasn't in his sight, he thought I was gone. So we have pivoted and we are doing much better. The medication is amazing. Um, I would say if you are questioning it, talk to your doctor, and your kids may be better off on the meds, even if it's uncomfortable for you. And I've made it very not uncomfortable for him. That's why he's super open about it. I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a stigma with it. I mean, I think mental health as a whole, as an umbrella topic, whether it's depression or anxiety, or if it's Asperger's or ADHD. I mean, any kind of mental or neurological disorder, there's a stigma around it that it's taboo and that we shouldn't
sure.
talk about it. But it affects more people than we know. I mean, there are people that function just fine in the day-to-day world, and you meet them at networking events or at a million cups,
Mm-hmm.
like this, no, the event that you run, and you just wouldn't know. You
Right.
wouldn't know from talking to them, but it doesn't mean they're not feeling it. It doesn't mean they're not affected by it.
I will say this: when Rylan was 5 and he started presenting with these hyperventilations and panic attacks, I didn't really understand at that point. I was just like, you go to school every day, like just go. And I would just tell him like you have to. And that was probably the wrong thing to do, but I didn't know what else to do. You can't just be out of school all the time. So we started talking to him. What I did was I talked to him about anxiety. I was like, hey, so like everybody has it, right? We all have anxious feelings about something. Even though I don't have anxiety of like leaving the house and stuff, but there are a lot of people who do. Most of my anxiety is around my child, and making sure that he's taken care of or like becomes a functioning member of society. But I don't have the like panic attack stuff. And so I didn't understand it. And I was like, hey, so like you're my sister, one of my sisters, I have a lot, but one of my sisters has anxiety and she like chews her fingers until they bleed. And she's very open about it. She'll tell you about it. And my other sister pulls her eyelashes out. That's the one that went through the divorce with me. And she's been doing that since my mom left. Anxiety shows up in different ways for everybody, but we all have it. And as soon as he heard that, he was like, oh, like I'm not by myself in this. And he would go to school and start talking to kids about their behavior. He was like, fine going after this. And he, like, it wasn't as big a deal, which is why we didn't put him on medication at 5. But he would go to school and he'd come home and he'd say, so and so was acting really bad in art. And I was like, hey, are you anxious about something? Because, sometimes when we act up, it's because we're anxious about something. And he would just like, I don't know what the word is for it, but like therapy for these other kids. And he'd be like, you're not alone. I also have anxiety. And I was like, okay. He's like a little old man trapped in a kid's body. And he's always been that way. But it was so funny to watch the transformation of like, you're not alone. This happens. And for me, like, you watched me do this when I was overwhelmed. Anytime I'm overwhelmed, I will clean. Like, you can't stop me. Everything has to be scrubbed. So I will be on the floor with like a toothbrush and it all has to get done. And he has seen me do that a couple of times in his life. Stay up till 3 o'clock cleaning and like making sure the house is completely bleached. And I'm like, that's what I do. So like, we have to decide what you're gonna do when you're anxious and how that presents and whatever. But that was a big pivotal moment. You're not alone.
There are definitely worse ways to react to having anxiety outbreaks than cleaning.
For sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's very admirable in its own. For for your son at 11, you said,
Mm-hmm.
11 years old, to be a counselor of sort to other kids and they respond to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he talks about he'll come home and tell me their problems. He comes home and talks to me about I get all the tea. He comes home and talks to me about all the kids and what they say when he talks to them about certain things. And like there are certain topics that we can't discuss. And because this is not a kid friendly podcast, I can tell you, Rylan has never believed in Santa. He has never believed in the Easter Bunny. He thought they were creepy, but my in laws believe in them and wanted him to be a kid and my sister. And so like he doesn't tell them that he knows, and he knows he can't go to school and say that. You cannot go to school and ruin someone else's childhood because you don't believe and you think it's creepy. That's fine. Just don't say it to other kids. And he has never, ever told another kid that Santa's not real. But when he said it, I was like, what do you think? And he was like, it's the parents. It's the only thing that makes sense. And I was like, okay, don't tell other children that, please. And he was like, okay.
Santa, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, all that stuff, I guess, is part of what makes us enjoy our childhood. I guess it's that innocence that we have, and then I mean, it seems like he's been stripped of it long ago.
Oh yeah, he was like 5 when he was in first grade. They had an Elvis on the Shelvis was his teacher's elf on the shelf. We didn't have one of those because they're weird, and I do not have the capacity to move an elf every day. And he came home and he was like, "Listen, it's the only thing that makes sense. The parents have to move this elf, right?" And I was like, "Why do you think that?" And he goes, "Think about it, Mom. It is creepy. There's an elf running around your house at night doing stuff. Like I do not want that." I was like, "Okay, good thing we don't have an elf, but also don't tell other kids that." And this year, he actually told me, and she knows, but he said, "Mom, um, I think we need one more year. I'm not going to tell Oma that I don't believe in Santa. I think she needs another year of thinking that I believe in Santa." And I was like, "Okay, you do what you want. You can tell her when you're ready."
The maturity of the kids in your biological family is off the charts. Really, that's amazing.
Maybe genetic, maybe adversity, maybe both.
Maybe you're guiding them that way after what you had to go through as a child too.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's a big part of it.
So, and like I was just alluding to, it's not just your son. You have a brother who has some struggles as well. Do you want to share that?
Sure. So, Zach is currently in a rehab facility in the upstate. He has spent, I think he was 16 the first time he was caught with pills and that were like at my dad's house, not my mom's. And my dad had to send him to live with my mom. He was extremely smart, graduated early, but there was a baby in my dad's house, and he was like, we cannot. My dad lived in Florence, my mom lived in Anderson, so he hadn't seen my mom in a while. My dad's like, we can't risk him dropping something and the baby getting it. So I begged my dad not to send him to live with my mom. I was like, that's not how we fix the problem. But he was like, I don't have other choices. He's graduated, but he's 16. He has to be with a parent. And so I still lived in Anderson at the time. It took my mom all of 3 days to call me to come get him because he didn't get along with my stepdad. But he struggles. He has been in and out of rehabs, in and out of jail. His rap sheet is longer than my body, and we keep trying to help him get on track, but you can't make somebody do it. And I've had to come to terms with that. Like, I am currently helping him while he's doing the right thing, which is all you can do. And if that doesn't work out, then it's fine, but like at a distance. So I love you. I want you around. I would like to help you, but like we can only do things for you when you are doing what you're supposed to. And so otherwise, you live the life you want to live and you live it away from me.
You can lead a horse to water, right? That's
Absolutely. And my favorite thing to say, which is probably not the best thing, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, but you can drown them. So, like, there are times that I'm like, kind of want to hold him under, but I won't.
I get that. No, it's frustrating. I mean, I can't personally relate, but I'm just trying my best to put myself in those shoes. And if I had someone in my immediate family that did that, it would be so difficult to navigate. I guess that's how.
It is.
I guess that's where I want to go next with this too. Is how do you reconcile your past, your brother's current struggles with addiction, your son, not that he has addiction, but he has anxiety issues. It's an issue that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
How do you reconcile or navigate through all of this to be the best that you can be?
I very specifically I compartmentalize things. I very specifically have to say, I can do things for Zach when he's doing what he's supposed to. And if he's not, I can't sit around wondering if he is clothed or fed or warm or anything else. I did that for a long time. When I speak at the sober living facility that I sit on the board for, and the first night that I spoke with them, I said, listen, I've been on both sides of this. I've been on the addict side and I've been on the sober side. And I promise you, it's better on this side. But until you have walked through the woods looking for what you think is going to be your brother's body, like I will never do that to someone again. So I very intentionally choose sobriety, not just because of what I'm afforded and the ability to keep my child and do all these things, but like I've walked through the woods looking for Zach's body and hoping that I didn't find it, but not knowing where he was. He had disappeared. He does this a lot. And so I'm like, we wanted to take him backpacks of food and I can't do that anymore. My capacity is if you don't want it, I can't want it for you. With Rylan, it's a lot different because his is a medical issue and he's my child. Um, I I manage that. I still compartmentalize it a lot because it's hard to have a child that needed medication so early and that you feel like you can't help. I want to fix everything, but I can't save him from everything either. So, like, we dive into everything that does scare him. Like, I push him so hard. Probably, I don't say to his detriment, but it could be. I push him very hard to like do things that are uncomfortable. I'm like, you can do hard things and you can do it scared. And you can do anything for 30 seconds or whatever. If it's a ride at Disney World, I'm like, it's a 3 minute ride or 5 seconds to the bottom. Like, you can do that. And he has grown a lot. I will say it bites me because he pushes back. And my biggest fear, which does not keep me from living life or making money, is sharks. So I'm like, I did not become an underwater welder for a reason. And so, like, I don't love that. So when we went on the cruise, one of our biggest goals was to go swim with sharks. We did not get to do that because Atlantis took that away from their thing, but we did go down the shark tube and I was in a tube that had sharks around it, and let me tell you, I screamed the whole time. But he was like, "You have to swim with sharks because I make him do hard things." He's like, "We're going to swim with sharks. We're still going to swim with sharks," but he's still too young, I think, to like get those excursions for actually doing it, which is why we were trying to do it at Atlantis. But he is determined that I will be swimming with sharks like very soon.
I'm assuming that there's quite a thick glass border between you and them.
That did not matter. I thought I was gonna have a heart attack. I was on the phone with his dad one day before we left, and I said, "Okay, so life insurance is up today, and this, and if I die of a heart attack in this shark pool," and Rylan's like, "You're still doing it." I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna do it." But we slid down. It was like a double tube. You can go and you slide down this like water slide, and then you go through the shark tunnel that it has the glass around it. But you go through the shark tunnel, and they're like right there, right there. But I had to do it, and I did it because you can do anything for 3 minutes.
Fair enough. You can do anything for 3 minutes. I guess that's one of the things that you were not loving doing. And I want to get to that next. I know that you have, obviously, you have a son, you have a brother, you have a mother and a father that very different types of relationships with, and you have an ex-husband. Do you, in a way, feel like you're ever running low on love to give other people?
Oh gosh. Yes. So many times in life I have run myself ragged, and I do this. It's so funny because part of my coping with life is to stay super busy. So I will fill my calendar and my responsibilities so full that I can't function. And that includes with the nonprofits and stuff. I want to get involved in everything. I want to be part of everything. I want to change the world. And sometimes you can't do that. So I'm having to get really intentional about what I do and saying no if I can't do it and trying to mitigate my actual capacity because Rylan is 11, so he'll be out of the house before I know it. And I think it's super important. Like, I would love to start my own business, and I think he would love to work a business with me. But I sit here going, do I want to spend the last few years I have with him running a business? Or do I want to wait until it's a better time? Like, when he's in college, I can do whatever I want, or when he's out of the house, but I don't want to be so consumed with running a business because it matters that I'm present for him.
It's obviously a very difficult dynamic to have to be a single parent with a child who has anxiety, who's open with it and who's fine with it, but also to have to go through your own struggles and try to navigate the two of those different. And then, of course, your brother, not that he's in your life anymore, but your stepfather and all that's in your past. All those are kind of still there in the back of your head. So, how do you maintain your not just your sobriety because I mean you talked about how it's just a coping mechanism of yours to stay busy and everything, but how do you manage to stay so driven and also keep the end goals of things in sight?
I know what it looks like on the other side. I know what it looks like if I relapse. I lose my child. I lose the life that I've built. I lose the jobs that I have. I will lose my house. I will lose my stability. I know that, and I'm very intentional about it. But I have told people for my entire sobriety journey, you cannot attach your sobriety to a person, not even your child. You can't attach it to something that can disappear. And so, most of the time, and I didn't bring one today, but most of the time, I am holding coffee at all times. And I have cups in my car. I stopped my Starbucks habits like $300 a month. It is wild, but it is what keeps me going. I know that I can get coffee from anywhere at any time. I can buy it at the store. I can make it at home. I can go to a restaurant. Anything that I need can be grounded in coffee, pun intended, I guess. And so I don't even drink my coffee always. I hold it. And so like you'll see me holding a coffee and I'll have it all day long and people will be like, "You nurse drinks." And I'm like, "Yep." Because I it's an emotional support coffee and it is how I put my addiction somewhere in a healthier manner. But like I said, I don't always even drink it. I'll order large coffees. I have a massive budget for it, but like I don't always drink all of them because they're just there to keep me on track.
So that's how you got involved with a million cups.
Actually, no, I got involved with a million cups. Somebody invited me, and that's how I met Pat and Dylan from Stillworthy. They go to a million cups, and that's how I got on their board. Was through a million cups, but I didn't know about a million cups. Somebody told me because of my entrepreneurship um, tendencies, I guess they were like, "You have to come to this group."
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, I was kind of making a joke, but also serious at the same
But yeah,
time. I guess it can't hurt to be at an event that literally encourages people to drink a million
a
cups of
million
coffee.
cups of coffee.
Yeah. So obviously there's so much here, and there's so many different lessons and messages that could be derived from this. What is the primary message that you hope to convey through your relationships? Going back to the first episode, with your stepdad and also your mom, your biological mom, and your biological father, who you had a good relationship with. All of these relationships that you've had throughout your life, what message or story or moral do you have to give to people?
Sure. So, I will tell you that I spent a lot of time having a relationship with my mom that did not serve me and was hard for me, but because she was my mother, and that's what people will tell you, but she's still your mom. And about 3 years ago, I had to cut all of my ties. My brother still talks to her when he needs money or whatever. My sister will answer the phone if she calls, but none of us had much of a relationship with her. And she's down in Florida now with my current stepdad. Not the same one I grew up with, but very similar. And so if it's not serving you and someone repeatedly expects more of you than they give and doesn't take responsibility for their actions, you do not have to keep a relationship with them. If someone is your support system, your safety, and your whatever, like my dad has always been that for us, lean into that and make sure that you don't take advantage of it. But like very much lean into those relationships and keep them whole. I rekindled with my dad when I was probably 19 years old. Um, and we have a great relationship now and had one prior to me living with my mom. And my dad would drop I could call my dad right now and be like, there's a wasp in my house. And he would drive from Columbia to come kill it for me. That's the dad I have. And he's always been that way. So lean into that. When it comes to your sibling, it's a lot. It's really hard for me to distance myself from Zach. And like I said, I've spent a lot of time trudging through woods trying to find him and calling people that I'd never want to talk to outside of this and, trying to track him down or help him or do stuff. And what I will say is, when I had my son, I think I had to transfer like the energy I could put into this because I can't want it for him to my child and say, like, I'd rather not be sitting with my child in rehab in 20 years because I never showed up for him while I was busy looking for Zach. I'd rather spend my time with my child than to try to keep a relationship with my mom that doesn't serve me or him. I make time for the people who matter and who have showed up and who support me and my lifestyle and don't act like they never do anything wrong. Like my dad will apologize for things he's not even responsible for, and that's what a parent does. Like I do wrong things all the time. Like I am not a perfect parent. But I always apologize and I'm like, okay, what can we do next time? Like how can we fix this? What do you need from me for us to be better about the situation in the future? Like how do you collaborate with your kids versus beat them down? And that's a big part of our household.
So I guess one of the lessons to take then is that it is okay to show vulnerability and imperfections, and also that if you're gonna be utilizing help from someone, then you have to be able to return it back to them, and vice versa.
Yeah, and I don't ever do anything with the thought that like it will be reciprocated. That I did get from my dad, and he's very good about that too. Is like he'll be like, I could loan money to somebody, and I don't ever expect to see it again. And I've done that so many times. If I have extra, like it's a sharing situation. Like I don't believe in taking it with you when you go because you can't, and I don't believe in trying to save money. Like if I pass away tomorrow, Rylan will get a bunch of money that I could have spent taking him places or doing things with him here. And so like I never expect the reciprocation. And I tell Rylan that when he's in bad moods, I'm like, listen, you don't owe me good behavior, but like I need you to tell me what's wrong and not act like this because I don't deserve that. Right? So like just because I feed you and clothe you and like house you doesn't mean that you owe me anything. Not a good day, not nothing. But I need you to understand that like I don't deserve what you're doing and just need to like talk about that.
So do it just to do it, not because you owe me. And
Just do it to help people.
yeah, I was gonna say you think that's effective, but it is effective. I
It
shouldn't. It's
is.
not a matter of thinking. It is effective. You've seen it.
100%. There are people from Stillworthy that I took major risks on, because they were doing what they were supposed to be doing and they needed the help. And I never intended to see the money or the time or whatever it was that was spent again. And there are three residents that I still talk to regularly that are still on track, and they tell me, they're like, I would not be here if it wasn't for you. And I'm like, nope, I don't get credit for that because you do that every day. Like, you make those happen. And maybe without the assistance or the help or the introduction to somebody or whatever, you wouldn't be where you're at. But that's part of life. Like, open your mouth and say what you need and tell people what you want, and they will help you. And that's kind of, I like being the connector. I like being the person that can introduce you to somebody and change your life.
So, as we're looking to transition from part two of your story into part three, let's put a bow on the story arc of your son. I guess is the best way to think to put it. So, how is your relationship with him now at age 11 different from your relationship with him when he was 4 or 7 or 2?
Sure.
How
Um,
has that relationship evolved?
so not too much different, but we're hitting puberty now, so like that's fun. So we talk a lot more about girls and things that happen at school and you know anything like that. But for the most part, we have always been open. I will say, when I was married, when he was 4, I definitely was overstimulated and over tired. And I was the mom that came home and yelled a lot. And I did not like that. So when I finally separated from my husband, I became a very different mom. I was always the safety, and I was always the person he wanted when he was sick. Like, he doesn't trust that other people will take care of him. He'll call me, even from, and my in-laws are great. Well, my ex-in-laws, I guess. They can handle anything. But he would call me with his dad and my in laws and my adult, like, sister and brother in law in the room. And he would just say, I need to call my mom. And they'd go, okay. And he'd call me and immediately start crying and go, I think I'm going to be sick. And I'm like, you're in a room full of 6 adults who are perfectly capable of handling sick. And you called me, and I'm like, okay, put me on speaker. Tell your dad to follow you to the bathroom. Like, I would walk through all of that with him. And to his detriment, did too much for him, took care. He didn't trust anybody else to make a decision. He didn't trust himself to make a decision. And I'm like, okay, I have to step back now and let him be independent. And I did try when he was little. I would be like, okay, if you can't do it, you can't do it. That was our rule. So if we went to the park and he was like, push me on the swing, I'd be like, I did not come here to push you on the swing. Love you, mean it. But if you can't figure it out, then I guess you're not swinging. And he would figure it out. So I thought I was instilling all of that with these small things like tying your shoes and swings, but like, it didn't translate the way I thought it was. And so I had to step back even further. And now I have to like let him fight his own battles, which is really tough. Last year, no, at the beginning of this year, he got a kid in his class is not great and stabbed him in the hand with a pencil. And I was like, I will lose it. Are you kidding? And he's like, I don't want to tell the teacher because I don't want to get in trouble. And I'm like, he won't stand up for himself. So I'm still battling that part. But I'm like, you will not get in trouble because someone else did something to you, and you have to tell. She can't be stabbing people with pencils. And so now I have to walk him through what he needs to do and help him make decisions and let him come to terms with that on his own, which is the hardest thing in the world. I'm like, no, no, this is what you do. You just do it. And he's like, no. So I have to help him like figure out how to say what he wants to say, what to do in these situations, how to advocate for himself. I'm like, if something happens tomorrow, no one else is going to advocate for you and what you need. You have to tell people what you need. You have to be able to articulate why you feel a certain way or what you want in life. And then people will help you. And so we work through that a lot. But the puberty conversations are my favorite. They're very interesting, but we are super open households. So like nothing is off the table, and that's where we're at now.
That's I guess that's a good place to be when you have that kind of honesty with your child, and this is the key, and he's mature enough to be able to handle it.
Yes.
If
So
you're open and honest, but he's not able to handle it, then it's probably not a good idea.
right. So I base everything on what information you bring me and age appropriateness for what is coming and how to handle all of that. So like, and he loves, I'm a crime junkie. Like, I love that, murder mysteries and things, but I'm very intentional because of his age right now. I'm like, okay, only missing men who, they've not found anything about them, because when you dive into crime junkies, mostly murdered women who have been assaulted and like He's at an age where that's not appropriate. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna no break-ins because he gets nervous about break-ins. Only missing men who have just disappeared without a trace. We're running out of them. I need them to make more.
And no, yeah, I mean, obviously, sexual assault's not a
Not
topic.
a puberty topic for
No,
sure.
I guess that's a good place to go with my final question. Then, how much of your childhood does he know about?
All of it. He
All of
knows
it.
every aspect. So on that topic, I was assaulted when I was young. I was 15 years old. I was already sober. Um, he knows about it. He doesn't know the details of it. He just knows that not everybody's a good person and some people will hurt you. And so you have to be careful and like vigilant about your safety. And for girls, it's a lot worse than for boys. But even as a boy mom, like I have to worry about anybody I introduce to him. I have to worry about anybody like at all times. And I grew up in a household where molestation was like a hot topic for my mom to talk to us about. So we felt like everybody was out to molest you. No kidding. And so like I had to be really intentional not to scare him, but also be like he doesn't stay with anybody but my dad and my in-laws and Ryan because we know that like none of them ever did anything to us. So he hasn't really had sitters and people don't understand that. They're like, "You don't leave your son with sitters?" I'm like, "Never. Not ever." He stays with family who didn't touch me, okay?
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a hard anxiety for me. That's a very hard anxiety for me.
Yeah. I mean, I was just gonna say, I'm surprised in a sense, and I'm also not surprised, but that he has anxiety issues without even thinking about all that.
Yeah.
That's a good reason to keep that kind of thing from him.
Yeah.
Well, Megan, I mean, we're still another episode to get to in this mini series, but I mean, as we kind of wrap up part two, before I get to the closing piece of this, what advice do you have to give to other parents who have children either with anxiety or medical issues, or who, in your case, let's say that you had Rylan and he didn't have any issues at all, but you still had the issues that you brought to the table as a child. Anything that you've dealt with that someone else can share, how do you encourage them to deal with it and move forward?
I think talking about it is key. I think we, and including me, grew up in a time where like talking about it wasn't prevalent. Telling people that you have anxiety, or like all of the parents in the 80s and 90s were on something. And most of the time it was cocaine, to be honest, in like the 80s. And so like you don't talk about the exhaustion or the burnout, or people tell you that having kids is beautiful and it's always going to be like you just get to watch this tiny version of yourself grow up and it's awesome. It's a lot of work. It's not always awesome. It's a lot of exhaustion and not knowing how you're going to get through tomorrow and trying to figure out if you can sleep through your alarm again. And so, like, my best advice is be open about your struggles, about I mean, age appropriately, but your struggles, their struggles, and make sure that they don't feel like they can't say anything. Because I think part of our culture issue is if you hide the fact that you're anxious, you feel alone. You don't realize that everybody has anxiety over something. You don't realize that my story might be the same as your story or similar, and we could handle things so differently, but like at least we know we're not alone. We're all going through the same things for the most part, right? Different walks, but you couldn't throw a rock and find a woman who hasn't been assaulted in some way.
That
Guaranteed.
that is terrifying.
Yeah.
And I'll grant you, like I've grown up being taught to respect everybody. It doesn't. The idea of assaulting someone is just not something that was pro. Yeah, but the fact that, like you just said, you can throw a rock and hit someone with that's horrifying.
One of my favorite and least favorite quotes is everyone knows a woman who's been raped, but no one knows a rape. That is a very real topic that people don't talk about. And you're like, we all sit here going, no, he's a great guy. He's a pillar of the community. He would never. And that's the way it works.
I mean, yeah, that's just horrifying to think about. That well, perfect. That's a perfect way to end the show. Now that I keep thinking of potential ending questions, but that's a great one. In that kind of a world, how are you planning on raising Rylan as he gets older? and becomes of that age.
Yeah. So we are already talking about consent, mostly because he's like trying to hug or hold hands. He did get caught kissing like the girlfriend they had at school. And they told him they couldn't date anymore because they're tired of the cutesy stuff. He didn't tell me about the kiss until a little bit later, but he was like, they don't want us doing that. And I'm like, yeah, valid. Because you're a little young for this, but I also understand like their feelings and their kids and they're gonna do stuff. So like can't keep them from it. Just talk to them. Um, for me, I feel like just telling him like things happen and people can be horrible, but you will not be one of them. Like as your mom, you have to know that like if it were your sister or me or someone that you love, you wouldn't do these things. And it's easy, I think, sometimes to compartmentalize like who it is, if it's a stranger or if it's something else. And like you will not be one of those guys. You will be the guy for the girl that's too drunk at the party. There is no question that it is your responsibility if you're capable. And it's funny, he won't stand up for himself, but he will lose his mind and go to bat for any of his friends. So he's like, I don't even care that I'm gonna get in trouble. I hit a kid today because he picked on my friend and like pushed him down and took his jacket. And I'm like, where's that energy when people are picking on you? But also, great. Like you don't get in trouble for that at home. You get ice cream and high fives. Like,
Yeah, I mean that's as good a way to cap the show as I guess there can be. I mean, there's definitely an element of, you know, not breaking the law in terms of your
yeah.
response, but also being there for your friends and being willing to stand up for them and do what's uncomfortable for them.
My ex-husband is 6'2". Rylan is in fifth grade going to six. He's almost taller than me at this point. And so a lot of times, like because he's still young, he has these like outbursts where he might try to bow up at me, which, I'm still bigger than him at this point. I could take him, but like we don't want to. And so I think my favorite thing I've told him is you're gonna be a big guy. Like you're gonna be tall and kind of intimidating. And it is your responsibility that no one ever feels unsafe in your presence or intimidated, like you would hurt them. Men, women, anybody alike. Like your responsibility is that everybody is a very safe person to come to and be around, and that nobody ever goes, I would never want to be in a room with Rowland. And so we talk about that even now, and part of it is before he's bigger than me and like thinks he's gonna bow up at me at that point, I need to make sure that he knows those rules.
Very, very respectable, very noble, very empowering. Yeah, and I can't wait to finish this conversation in part three. Megan, as always, we're so thankful to have you come on and share your insights as to everything regarding your personal struggles as a child, your child now growing up, going through puberty, and being a good friend, and everything in between that we've talked about. So, as we wrap up this episode, be sure to remember that in the face of adversity, there is always the opportunity for growth, development, and success. Be sure to come back for part three. We're going to put a bow on all this with Megan Brown, but until then, we're so thankful to have you share your
Thank
insights.
you.